Okay, so to write an equation of a line, it's 3 steps. The first step is to find the slope. The second step is to plug the slope and one set of coordinates into the slope point equation here. And the third step is get y alone so that it looks like y equals mx plus b. So it's these 3 steps. So how we're going to accomplish that? Let's say we have this situation here, and they say find the equation of the line that made this line. So in order to do step 1, to find the slope, we need to know 2 sets of coordinates from the line, and they're specifically giving us 2. If they didn't, then we'd find 2 that we want to use. But this one, it looks like it's at 2 on the x and negative 2 on the y. And then this one is at negative 4 on the x and positive 1 on the y. So now we have 2 sets of coordinates. And we need to identify, to make the slope, we have to identify which one is our first set and which one's our second set. And it never matters. Just make a decision. So like I'll call this x1 and y1, and this one x2 and y2. And the 1s and the 2s just mean from the first set and from the second set. We could have flopped the other way. That would be fine. So now the slope intercept equation says y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I said slope intercept equation. That's wrong. It's the slope formula says this. Sorry. So if we're going to do y2, that's this one over here. So it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So notice that the first 2 numbers came from the same set. Both of these were from this set here, and we started with the y value, not the x value. The y values are on top, the x values are on the bottom. So now we do the math. 1 minus a negative 2 is actually 3 if you put it in your calculator. Negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. And when you put that in your calculator, that reduces to a negative 1/2. So for this line right now, we know that our slope is a negative 1/2. So step 2, we're supposed to plug that into that slope point equation that says y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. So, excuse me. So we're going to replace the y1, we're going to replace the x1, and we're going to replace the slope with numbers that we now know. So we know that the slope was a negative 1/2. And then up here are x1 and our y1. So we're going to say x minus 2 because our x1 was right here. For our y, it's y minus y1. Well, the y1, the y from the first set was a negative 2. Like that. So now we're going to kind of clean it up a little bit. This is like negative 1 times negative 2, or the negative of negative 2. So this really is saying y plus 2. And then if we distribute the negative 1/2 to both of those numbers multiplying, we get negative 1/2 x. And we get negative times a negative is a positive. So 1/2 times 2 is 1. If you can use your calculator for that if you want. So step 3, to get it in slope-intercept form, which is the y equals mx plus b form, we got to get y by itself on one side of the equal sign. Well, right now, y is not by itself. It has a plus 2. So if we start with what we have right now, And we get y alone, we have to do the opposite. We have to subtract 2 and subtract it from what's alike over here. So we get y equals negative 1/2 x minus 1, because plus 1 minus 2 is a negative 1. This is my linear equation.